Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
26, 2019. I'd like to note that there is a quorum of the Minnehaha County Commission here.
Clerk, can you read a roll for the City of Sioux Falls, please?
Council members Nitzert.
Here.
Selberg.
Here.
Sale.
Yes.
Starr.
Here.
Staley. Brecky. Erickson. Here. Kylie.
A quorum is present for the city as well.
Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like a motion on the county side to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Look for a motion on the City of Sioux Falls side to approve the regular agenda.
I so move.
Second, Erickson.
All right, moved by Sale and seconded by Erickson. Clerk, can we take a vote on that, please?
Council members Nitzert.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale.
Yes.
Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
All right, that passes 7-0.
Okay, so that takes us to our one and only item of business tonight. It's the second reading of an ordinance amending the 2002 revised joint zoning ordinance for Minnehaha County and the City of Sioux Falls by rezoning property at Lot A, Tract 1, Laurel Ridge Addition, southeast quarter of the southeast quarter, Section 23T, 102 North, R49W, Mapleton Township, Minnehaha County, South Dakota, from the A1 Agricultural District to the Laurel Ridge Crossing Plan Development District. The Sioux Falls Planning Commission recommended approval 5-0, and the Minnehaha County Planning Commission recommended approval 6-0. I believe Scott Anderson is here. Good evening.
Good evening, Scott Anderson, County Planning Director. And yes, tonight is the second reading and possible final adoption of a rezoning request submitted by Tyler Childress. This is a plan development request, and I'll go over generally a brief outline of what the applicant is proposing. The property is located approximately 1 mile north of Sioux Falls, about a quarter mile east of the intersection of Slip Up Creek Road and County Highway 125, which is also known as Jim Zweep Highway. This is rolling hills. It consists of approximately 30 acres, and the applicant was originally asking for a plan development with 3 sub-areas. This went to the joint planning commissions, and subsequently sub-area C was removed from the overall request, which was agreed upon by the applicant. So what is being brought to you tonight is a plan development consisting of 30 acres. Sub-area A will be the commercial area. It's approximately 4 to 5 acres, and it will it will consist of a events facility and parking and landscaping for that events facility. The remainder of the 30 acres will be will remain in the agricultural use, where the applicant will have access to graze his horses that he has out there and use it in a pasture for livestock. As I indicated, this did go before the Planning Commission at the the January 28th meeting, and it was recommended for approval. The ordinance that I have provided to you reflects just the 2 sub-area plan, which would be the commercial area and the ag area. I have a couple pictures I can show you. These were taken in warmer days, so you can see I'm basically standing, well, I am standing on the new approach, which was constructed by the applicant, which goes straight south into the commercial area. But this is looking east on Slip Up Creek Road, where it curves to go to the north. And this is looking at the same location, just turned and looking west back towards the county highway. I will, for those on the public and in the joint commissions, This portion of Slip Up Creek Road is not paved. There is a portion that is located in front of Andy's Acres, the residential area, that has been paved. And then when it gets to the end of the residential area, it's no longer paved and it goes into a gravel road, which is maintained by Mapleton Township. This is looking straight south into the new driveway, which will access the commercial area. You can see that it is primarily right now just open space. This is looking directly south. The events facility is going to be, would propose to be constructed on the south side of this private access easement road, whatever you'd like to call it. As it turns and as it curves, on the south side of that is where the proposed events facility would be constructed. And this just looks sort of to the west. Slip Up Creek flows through the property. This is looking on that road back towards the west where the applicant at one time had proposed some residential development that is no longer at this point being brought forth to you. This is down on the property, looking back north towards the Slip Up Creek Road, the Township Road. This is just once again sort of the area, a part of the area where the events facility would be occurring or be built. This shows the agricultural area. You can see that the applicant had several horses there. There's some temporary corrals that are set up for training or whatever. Once again, this shows that some agricultural use that is occurring out on the site. Shows that the property sort of slopes off to the south. It's a very scenic property. It's wooded. And once again, this is looking directly east from the subject property, sort of over the top of Slip Up Creek and then up into the rolling hills to the east. And that is the end of the pictures. Right now, the property is vacant except for the agricultural use that's occurring on the site. I will be glad to answer any questions. If this is approved, for those, just to give you an update or an explanation of how plan developments work, should it be approved tonight, once it becomes effective, the applicant would bring back a final development plan, which would be approved by the joint planning commissions. That final development plan really hammers out the nuts and the bolts, the final details of how the building would lay out on the property, the parking, the signage, the landscaping. That is all addressed in the final development plan. So I would be glad to answer any questions you have. The applicant is here. This is a public hearing, and I know that there are people from the neighborhood that are also here.
Are there any questions for Scott Anderson? Commissioner Staley.
Do we take we're going to do the questions now before the public input? Is that?
If you had a question for Mr. Anderson that's specifically on what he just talked about, I think you could go.
Well,
ahead and
I
ask it.
just, if we could go back to the slide that showed the parcels to start with, there we go. Can you just point out, where is that cemetery going to be in proximity to this?
So this
help
is
me.
the parcel. If we back up one slide, I can show you maybe that parcel right there is where the proposed veteran cemetery is going to go. If you can see where the cursor is located there.
Right, but and then the red thing, the red outline is the
proposed
commercial.
That's the entire 30 acres of the planned development.
Including, but so how about the resident, go back to the one before. Okay, right here. So you're talking about, I'm just concerned about this commercial area and just so I can, is it like up above there where the cemetery is, right up in there?
Right there's the edge of the cemetery property.
Okay. And then at some point, are we going to see like perhaps where, or maybe the people are going to show us where other residents are living? Because right now it looks to me like this is all just open.
It is fairly open. So there is a subdivision that's located there, and you can see it on the left side of the property. That's a subdivision, a rural subdivision called Andes Acres. There's probably 30-some homes in that rural subdivision.
So they're going to be buffered, the cemetery is going to be kind of between them and this area?
Well, the cemetery will actually abut several, at least 2 of the properties there. So the cemetery is a, fairly large parcel of property that is being developed.
And is Andes, so the Star is what we're talking about, Andes is over there. Has Andes ever been talked about being annexed into the city? Were they ever,
That I could not tell you.
that they were in the,
I don't know. I don't think that the city's talked about annexing them. It's not contiguous to the city limits. So at this point, I doubt that the city has expressed any interest in annexing it.
okay, thank you.
Counselor Neitzer?
Can you put up the sub-areas for me, Albert? And just to be clear, sub-area C is not on the table, correct?
That's correct.
It would just be A and B because C was not supported by either of the planning staffs.
That's correct. So basically, C has been dissolved into sub-area B. So there's only a commercial and an agricultural component.
Okay, there's a statement in our staff report that says that they wouldn't be able to do an on-premise sign at the road. Is that because sub-area B, ag, doesn't allow it? And that's what they're showing as kind of a flagpole?
I didn't hear your first part of your
An on-premise sign. There's a notation in our city staff report that says that they couldn't do an on-premise sign at the road.
Because of the road?
At the road.
Well,
It
I
says
think that is.
I'm guessing it's because of the zoning of ag right there, but
I think it had to deal with the fact that at one point, and this is still being discussed with the applicant, the sign, I think the city has regulations that a sign cannot be over a public access easement or a road.
oh, okay.
So if the applicant were to plat that as like a flagpole lot, or just plat it as a private access easement, potentially you could have a sign that would go over the top of that or on that parcel.
Not being familiar with property lines, who would the mutual access easement be with? Who's the other property owner?
At this point, there is none, so that's why he could do it as just a private access or a flagpole.
Okay, so it's really up to them is how
Yeah.
they design it and
Yeah.
plat it. So as far as the dirt road, you did answer the question of who maintains it. That would be the township.
Yes?
So if you, just having read the traffic study, if you have more vehicles on here, I'm not an expert at gravel roads. As far as maintenance goes, it says that they would be responsible for dust control. That would be in the sub-area regulations.
Yes, that's in the sub-area regulations. The Planning Commission wanted to make sure that from the driveway, which has recently been constructed, to the west, that there would be dust control that would be required to be installed and maintained by the applicant on a regular basis. Yeah, as shown in the yellow there. So basically from where the word Slip Up Creek Road, so where the word road ends is where basically the pavement ends. So at the end of the subdivision to the east, it's gravel. And the Planning Commission heard the concerns of the neighbors about potential dust, and they required the applicant to put down dust control on that section of Slip Up Creek Road.
And my understanding is at this point, there's nobody proposing to pave it because I think the feds would pave inside of their property, but not the public road. And there might be discussions about paving it or no, or where would that be?
Well, I think certainly has been discussions about paving that portion of Slip Up Creek Road that will go to the Veterans Cemetery. I know there's been discussions. I've been involved with some of those discussions. The question, and this is sort of getting, well, it is sort of germane to the entire project because the road is going to be providing access to both this planned development and the cemetery. However, the cemetery, the people that are behind, or the group, the organizations that are behind the Veterans Cemetery certainly would like to have that paved, and they realize that long-term, it's going to be the best option for the maximizing the use of that facility. Who's going to pay for that is going to be a different, you know, that's certainly up for discussion yet, and no one has really stepped forth to say, we'll pave it. Mapleton Township doesn't want to pave it, or, you know, maintain it. Sure. And there's going to need to be some re-engineering work done if they are going to pave it, because you're going to need to have a little bit wider shoulders and some side slopes and on that road, so.
And last question, if it's okay. In the sub-area regulations, as far as when it talks about hours of operation and noise, who would enforce that if there was somebody? Is that you and your planning staff? It's like a zoning violation in your county, or?
I am the administrator in the joint area as spelled out by the zoning ordinance. I do the zoning enforcement, so it would be up to me as the chief enforcement person for the county. How I delegate that would, some items are delegated through, you know, other areas of my office, other planners. But ultimately, it would be myself and the state's attorney's office that would be doing the code enforcement.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Commissioner Staley?
Back to this, to the road issue. What does dust control mean?
Well, there's typically dust control means magnesium chloride, which is it's typically used in many of our townships. Split Rock Township dust controls all of their streets, all of their gravel roads. It's basically a chemical that you put down on the gravel, and it lasts, depending on weather conditions and traffic, it can last for several months.
And the applicant's going to take care of that.
That was one of the requirements of the planning commission, that were added at the planning commission.
So when you come off of 125 and you're heading that first stretch, what does that road look like?
It's paved. It's probably a 22 to 24 foot driving surface with gravel shoulders.
Okay.
It's paved.
Okay.
So it's not a really significant portion of property. It's maybe 1,200 feet that will need to be what is commonly
Treated.
called mag watered or dust controlled.
Okay. And then on that, this whole parcel of property, is the applicant, does he have a residence there, or is there somebody living on any of that?
It's my understanding the applicant will be constructing a single-family residence where it's notched out. You can see where there's a notch there. That's where the applicant will be residing. You may want to verify that with the applicant, and he's here in the audience.
But otherwise, when we talk about that whole big parcel on that slide, the first slide we saw, if we could go back to that. Yeah, right on that whole area, no one is living on any of this property.
No,
That
not
right?
at this point.
And they don't want anyone having a house like sub-area C there? Or is it like no houses? Because you abandon the residential aspect,
That's
right?
correct.
So that no houses. This guy.
Not as the applicant had proposed them. Originally they'd wanted 7 residential lots there, and that has been taken away. It's been eliminated out of the plan development.
And just for my knowledge, if we have an area that's zoned agricultural, can I, as the owner, just say, I want to build one house there? Do I have to get permission just to build a house on that?
You would have to have a building eligibility, and I can't recall at this very minute if there are extra building eligibilities. The applicant has verified there's just one, and that is going to be used for that parcel where the applicant is going to be constructing his own personal residence, which is labeled now 1 on the map.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Commissioner Barth?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it's not a question. I just wanted to comment that the part of that road that is paved was paid for by the residents of Andes Acres. It wasn't the county, it wasn't the township. They put their own monies together and paved that road. So at the end of the RD on that thing, that's where the pavement ends, and it was never built up to the standard of a county highway. And so that's one of the issues about paving the rest of it is to bring it up to the standard.
Thank you. Anything else? Councilman Heitzer.
Yeah, so I guess, and maybe there might be commentary from the audience regarding this. I guess what would be interesting is, so, you know, it's a public road, obviously, so anybody can drive on it.
Yes.
But that being said, so I could presume you're out here and you might build this sort of a road, and now you're going to have the cemetery going in, and then you might have this going in. That would be a lot of extra cars and possibly wear and tear, obviously, on your road. And so, like, who, you know, is there any accounting for the fact that they're going to have to come up with money possibly faster to, I mean, I don't know how that works in the county.
No,
you know?
I used to be a resident of Mapleton Township, and we had our own discussion about paving the road. And I think that's a question you're going to need to ask some of the residents. But it's my understanding that in dealing with Mapleton Township, the understanding was the property owners along that road or in that subdivision came forth with the money to pave the road, and then Mapleton Township then at that point is obligated to take care of it afterwards. So I think that's the case, but we should ask the township or the residents. I think that was the understanding.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. As Scott mentioned, this is a public hearing. And so could I get a show of hands to see how many people are here tonight to speak in favor of this application? Okay, are you both going to speak or just one of you? Okay, great, thanks. And then can I get a show of hands for those who are here to speak against the application? Okay, and is there anybody in your group that is going to speak as a spokesman for your group? So there'll just be one of you speaking? Okay, so I just would ask that you keep your comments on point and that you try not to repeat something that somebody else has said so that we can, keep this kind of conversation going. I expect that you guys will all be respectful of each other, and that's what I would expect as well. So we'll go ahead and have the proponent, if you want to come forward and give your comments. If you'll just give your name and address, please.
Hello, I'm Tyler Childress, address 47677 Slip Up Creek Road. I want to thank you for the opportunity. This has been our family's project for over 1.5 years now, and our dream was to create a wedding facility like no other. My wife, my 4 kids, and my newborn baby girl have a lifelong dream to present the Sioux Falls Laurel Ridge Event Barn. We've gone through the process of joint planning and zoning and have had neighborhood meetings and have walked through the concerns of the neighborhood. We've talked about safety, road, commercial zoning, and many other concerns. Planning and zoning voted 11-0 in favor of the project. I just want to kind of address a couple of concerns we had. I'll start with you, Mr. Neitzer. The road, so my understanding, again, I'm newer to the area. My understanding is the paved road that goes from 125 to midway through Slip Up Creek was paid for by the residents. The current township supervisor, Don Oshlinger, he's taken that position after the paving has been done. His understanding is there is no long-term set or goal plans of how to financially pay for that road and repave it. And if it came up as an option to repave it, he would deny that. And he was unable to make it here today, but the cost to the township is much more on any paved road than a gravel road. So they actually subsidize that particular section along with 72, which runs, I can kind of show you where 72 runs to, but I didn't explain that yet. So 72 is okay. So it starts at 125 and goes towards Cliff Avenue. Those two are the highest traffic areas in Slip Up Creek in the Mapleton Township. So to answer your question directly, Yes, that was paid for and paid by them, but the cemetery, whether the road changes, the road stays the same, the cemetery is obviously going through, and there are no federal funds that would be apportioned to the road itself. So whatever happens with that particular street, the project, the cemetery will still keep going. As far as other options for Ms. Staley, yes, we have agreed upon the meg water that allows us to go from our parcel into Slip Up Creek Road. That's just like Sioux Valley Cycle Club. You can't see it in this picture, but if you go north on 477th, the Sioux Valley Cycle Club is also up there on that same road, and they've done the same thing with the township as well and paid for meg water there as well. The plan, yes, on 470, correct, yeah. And yes, there's one single family house. Obviously, you need to be able to pay for the house and stuff, so we want to be able to have a good running business operations and then build a single family house for my wife, my family, and that as well. So we were proposing obviously residential on the opposite side, but I took that back and went with just sub-area A and B. Yes, and I guess I just want to kind of reiterate, it's been a 1.5-year project for, like I said, my wife and I, and I've got my construction manager here as well. But our goal was to bring a new event center that would be a harmonious and contiguous section. It would serve with weddings, it would be able to serve with corporate events, it would have options for funerals and life gatherings as well. So it fits well into the mold of the scenery, it fits well into the rolling hills. Our goal is to build a barn type structure that would fit into the ag. Our goal is to not remove the horses, not remove the cows next to it. You'd still be at a wedding and be able to see flowing horses, cows as well, so it fits well within that particular area. But yeah, at the neighborhood meetings, we discussed safety, road, and many, many concerns. I'd love opportunity for any questions you have.
Are there any questions for Mr. Childress right now? Councilor Neitzer?
What are your expectations for traffic, and what days of the week would you expect events typically?
Yep, so we hired HDR, which is the traffic consulting company that the vice president of there did analysis on that. The primary business is wedding business, which is Fridays and Saturdays. Most wedding businesses happen between May and September range. So that would be our primary business. There could be some ancillary business of funerals and other type things, but the primary business is that. HDR found it not necessary to run a full in-depth study because of the off hours or non-prime hours. Prime is 8 a.m. Monday through Friday to 9 a.m. Then also same time, driving home from work as well. And we would be outside of that. So we wouldn't put additional traffic during the prime hours. Gravel roads, if maintained properly, can handle what we would have, what we would add, what the cemetery would add. You can have up to 450 cars per day on a properly maintained gravel road. So we would not obviously have that. The cemetery may not have it as well. Neither project would hinge on having a new road put in there. Obviously it'd be nice and could be used and that type of stuff, but each project doesn't hinge on that.
The road as it stands was projected could handle the
HDR
load.
explained depending on how the township maintains it, but 450 would be an estimate. It could go as high as 650, but it would be a much higher cost to the township, and that's average daily traffic.
And then my other question for you is, were you able to work with the hours of operation and the no outdoor music after 10 p.m.? Was that acceptable to you?
It was, yep, and those are things that were proposed by one of the members in the neighborhood, and we modified one small thing, and absolutely, yep, I think it's fair and justifiable. Yep.
Thank you.
Councilor Staley?
And then as far as, has there been an issue with lighting that would affect them?
When you stand on the property, and I was out there just recently, there's one new house. Alls I can see from the property itself is one of the houses. But part of the plan development and part of the restrictions put on would be a certain lighting that goes down and certain restriction lighting. So we'd follow the neighborhood and the plan development set of restrictions, which is very fair. It talks about certain way the light goes down, not up, not out. That would help keep the light on the property itself.
Do you ever like turn lights off at 11 o'clock?
Do I mean,
I mean, would that ever be part of it, that you
it's
just
hard to see.
shut it
and-
down?
It's hard to see, but how the property works towards the road, you actually go down in a valley, and in the valley is where the particular property would be. So there's quite a bit of grade difference between the top and the bottom. So with the proposed structure that I have, I mean, could you see lights from residents? Yes, but it would be no more, no different than the Sanford blue lights that run across there, up by kind of 229, I don't know if you know where that's at. But yeah, we wouldn't have any sort of unusual or unexpected for this type of facility. You know, the outdoor lighting would be very minimal. You know, there's not restrictions for lights all day, all night, 24 hours a day. You know, there's a couple of lights outside that have conicals facing down, so it would be, the property itself be lit up. I don't know if that answered your question or not. We'd obviously turn the lights off at midnight, correct, or shortly after. We'd have a restriction on when guests can be there, so they wouldn't be on all night. So at that point, yeah, lights would be turned off, correct, yep. But obviously we'd be living somewhere close, so our personal lights could be on as well and that stuff, so. But we'd be respectful of the area and that kind of stuff, yep.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. So those who would like to speak against this application, if you want to come up one at a time when you come forward, if you'd give your name and your address, please. Good evening.
Brad Thill, 25985 477th Avenue. If you want to look up the map, I live to the right of that proposed property right there, which basically his proposed bar is in my front yard. There's a lot of issues that go with this program, and let me state right now that there is nobody out there that is in favor of this bar going in. It's going to be too much to handle as far as the Veterans Cemetery and the traffic that draws into a 2-lane gravel road with dead ends on both ends and curves and hills and very treacherous roads. And it's not true. There is no shoulders on those roads. There's nothing but steep ditches. So anybody going off is more than likely to roll a car. And like they said, that pavement is paid for by the neighborhood, which is not going to be able to handle all the traffic that's going to be going down it, especially the heavy equipment that's going to be needed to establish the Veterans Cemetery as well as that bar. It's going to get tore up, and the township has said they are not putting any money forth other than what they do right now, and that's grade the road. That's it. One of the issues I brought up was about the sewage and how that would be handled. Obviously, this is positioned right beside the creek, and there has not been an answer to that other than, oh, it'll be done right. Well, there's been no answers back to us as far as any of these problems that we have coming up. For one thing, this is a volunteer fire department area. And what that means is that there's not going to be a quick response to any trouble out there, as well as the fact that if you actually do count the true numbers of vehicles that are going to be going up and down that road, then we've already been told that from the veterans group that it'll be averaging 1.5 funerals per day. Those funerals will all take place Monday through Friday. So that's an average of 2 funerals per day. And a funeral can average easily 300 vehicles. 2 funerals, that's 600 vehicles. Now, if you put on an event up at the motorcycle track and you add another 500 vehicles to the road, now you're up to 1,100 vehicles. He wants a 400 customer bar, and that could be upwards of 700 or more vehicles in one event. What if he has 2 events in one day? What if they have more than 2 funerals in one day? You're talking over 2,000 cars up and down a 2-lane gravel road with dead ends, curves, and hills. We've already had some very serious accidents out there. Luckily, there's not a huge amount of traffic that it hasn't been worse up till now. But I'll guarantee you, with the motorcycle track and the speeds they drive down the road, compared to what a funeral will drive up and down the road, you're going to have significant traffic problems. And nobody's addressed that. No answers whatsoever. Under the county side, we had over 40 people pack in that room saying, we don't want this. This is going to interfere with our lives greatly, and it greatly affects the safety of us and particularly our children. I'm a school bus driver for Brandon's school bus, and they said flat out it'll be impossible to pick up and deliver kids with that much traffic going down the road, let alone a fire truck, ambulance, or sheriff's department that can't keep up with the trouble we have out there now, even getting down the road to take care of the situation. We have a gentleman here, which I hope will get up and speak tonight. I just want to touch on it quickly, that the veterans were not aware of the problem we're having with all the traffic out there. And they said that they were going to look into it and address it. How, I don't know, because nobody comes up with any answers as to new roads or wider roads to get this stuff done. But I did have an opportunity to have a lengthy discussion with DJ Boothie, the Minnehaha County traffic engineer, who is in charge of safety on our public roads. And after discussing having 3 large venues on one road, it's not 2 roads, it's one road. 477th is completely attached to Slip Up Creek Road. There's no way off it or on it other than the 2 ends. And he said, quote, that road can handle the motorcycle track and the cemetery, or it can handle the motorcycle track and the event barn, or giant bar as I like to call it. It cannot handle all 3. I said, great. I need you at the zoning meeting to explain that to him. He said, no, I can't do that. I go, why not? You're the educated authority on traffic safety in the county of Minnehaha County. And he says, yeah, but that's not my jurisdiction. I'm county, and that's a township road. And I go, yes, that's exactly my point. It's a township road, gravel road. And I can't get him here to speak the authority on the matter. Their so-called traffic study was just nothing but pulling up the stats from the computer, and that's it. They didn't come out and even look at the road. It's bad. I barely got down it yesterday with the snow. And I encourage all of you to come out and get stuck, so you know what I'm talking about. That road cannot handle 2,000 cars a day. There's no way. And as far as I'm concerned, democracy in this country is dead. All the way from the top to the bottom. When 40 residents can stand there and complain and say, we don't want this, it's not going to help us, it's only going to interfere with our lives and create a public safety hazard for our children, and yet they go ahead and pass it. There's something wrong with our society when we've gotten to that point.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thill, for your comments. I appreciate you taking the time to be here tonight. We'll let the next person come up. I gave you a little bit of latitude because you're the first speaker, so the next speakers, I'd like you to make sure you don't duplicate comments that Mr. Thill made, okay? Thank you. So the next person would like to come up.
Good evening. My name is Phil Bechtold. I live at 47604 Sorrell Street, which is a block north of Slip Up Creek. But my brother's been out there on top of the hill for 40-some years. He's not able to come out tonight, or his son also lives there. And they live right on top of a hill where it's very difficult to get off of Slip Up Creek Road, even to turn in the driveway. You got to be real careful because you can't see cars coming from the other direction. But I think he mentioned there is no shoulder on the road. If you get off on that road, you're going down in a fairly deep ditch. And there have been accidents out there right off the end of the T intersection or on the curve right north of where this project is going to be. I belong to the Veterans Council, and they probably didn't know all the ins and outs of this whole thing. I told them the other night, last Thursday, and they were concerned. You know, it's going to be quite a project for Eastern South Dakota Veteran Cemetery. But we're concerned also mostly with the gravel road, the dangers of a little bit of imbibing in some beverages at Event Center and coming back out of there. It's going to be either noisy or a lot of gravel, even though it's going to be fixed with the chloride stuff for anti-dust. But the road that my brother and the other residents paid for, that's not meant really, I don't think, for that much heavy traffic. And there's going to be trucks delivering things and coming back out. There'll be garbage trucks, probably heavier than some of the ones that we've got around now. But otherwise, I'm just talking about we don't really want this thing down there. It's going to be a lot of rushing back and forth. Maybe noise from music, but I think he said that they're not going to have outdoor music. But I just came up tonight because I can't stick around maybe for the whole meeting, but we are concerned, and I'm speaking now for my brother and my nephew that live on top of the hill and our other friends around the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if the next speaker wants to come up. We have had a lot of comments about the road, so I think we're aware of the road, so I'd appreciate it if you'd keep your comments to other topics.
Good evening. My name is Russ Christensen. I reside at 47628 Slip Up Creek, and that's right on the paved highway. My front yard butts right up to the highway. I believe that's a 100-foot right-of-way, so 50 feet from the center of the road both ways. There isn't a shoulder on the road. I know you don't want us to talk about the safety of the traffic on the roads, but I can't reiterate enough that we've got the cemetery going in, which is, we think is probably pretty awesome. We didn't have a choice in the matter, but we've got veterans that we respect, and we think that that would be a great thing to have out there. And I don't think any of the residents at Slip Up Creek or Andy's Acres have any animus towards the family, Childress. As a matter of fact, we embrace new neighbors. And we have no doubt that there's going to be no problem building this thing aesthetically pleasing. If they abide by the lighting and so on, that's probably not the biggest issue, but the issue to us as a residents out there are the families. I'm a grandpa. I have 10 grandchildren, 11 and under. 7 of them live in town, and we're the central location for those kids to come out and run a little bit. Right now it's fairly quiet, except for one very important thing, and that is we have a racetrack just to the east of our development. And it's been there for quite a while, but it's well known to the residents out there that these kids that go to race every day from spring until fall, they're running late after their jobs, so they're in a big hurry. They're pulling trailers with their motorcycles in it, or they're in the back of their pickups, but they're already driving too fast. It's a 35-mile-an-hour speed zone, but I sit in my driveway in my garage, I'm retired, and I watch these kids go by, and it's way too fast. Very rarely do you ever see a vehicle driving 35 miles an hour. 45 to 70. I don't sit there with a radar gun, but I know that if you sat there, you wouldn't feel safe to have your kids out there with that kind of speed. I've actually stepped into the street and slowed traffic down, including the UPS driver. Just my personal opinion, combining the traffic with the cemetery, together with the fast traffic from the racetrack, that's a combination that perhaps we can deal with under the existing conditions. I would guess that I see a sheriff out there maybe once every other month. I can't guarantee I'm going to see them every time they're out there, but they don't patrol that road. They absolutely do not get out on that road unless they're called. And I could be on the phone daily with requests to come out there and sit and give tickets, but they don't. I know for a fact that the Mapleton County Township budget is already over budget. Their meeting is tonight. We leave from here to that meeting, but they're out of money. They don't have the money to maintain that road. I haven't heard from anybody anything except we've had conversation about somebody helping us with funds to fix the road. But nobody has said, we're going to come up with the money to make sure that it's a safe road to travel with that kind of traffic. And I personally feel that we're rushing it a little bit to have this venue built as soon as what they want to, they propose to build it. I'm a firm believer that reasonable people listen to reasonable requests, and my request is that we just take a half a step back, study it just a little bit more. I'm not a specialist. I appreciate your position. I know that it's your job to grow this city, and without growing, you die. I was a business owner in Sioux Falls for almost 30 years. I get it. You have to grow. But I don't think we grow this fast in that area. There's a right place and a right time, and I don't think that's either. Let's get a hold on the condition of the road. Let's make sure that the traffic is slowed down, what we have already. We find out some firm answers from people who can make the decision we're going to be able to maintain that road. And I ask that we delay the vote. We don't vote on it tonight. We get some firm answers on how to proceed forward with some of these things. I think it's very important.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Christensen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there somebody else who would like to speak? Possibly about something other than the road? I think we've heard the concerns about the road.
My name is John Gunn. I live at 25952 Jane Avenue. I'm just wanted to bring at your attention, if you think you're getting a little bit of static now, when you have half of Sioux Falls coming out on that road, they're going to be down here complaining. You guys are putting the horse way in front of the cart here. I mean, you can't have your citizens of Sioux Falls and people coming into this city for funerals from this state and having them driving on that road. You're just getting way ahead of yourselves on this. You're going to have somebody take over that road, fix it, get it nice so they can enjoy going to a cemetery. without having a bad experience of going in the ditch or having an accident.
I think I was pretty clear about the road. Thank you. Good evening. I trust you have something besides the road to talk about.
John Hagan, I'm 47640 Slip Up Creek Road. I live right in the little community there. The state of South Dakota sent out a survey to everybody that lives out there. Did you all get one? No? And they asked about the concerns that we might have as residents of the area with their development of the cemetery. And so we all had a chance to talk about it. And they responded to our responses. And I'm just here to make a suggestion. One of the responses they had is that for heavy construction equipment, when you're in the process of building something, you're going to be moving some heavy equipment around. And in light of what that road is, they're recommending that they bring the heavy equipment in from the north and they don't run it across the residential area. And so I'm here to ask that if you're going to go ahead and approve this thing, which I think you will, have them route the construction equipment from the north and keep them out of the residential areas, because there's going to be some heavy duty equipment and it's going to tear it up. It really is. It was built like a parking lot, not like a road. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Scott Zwak, 47646 Slip Up Creek Road. I'm actually the last one on that road before it turns into gravel. I was here a little over a year ago in front of you guys when I wanted to build a large garage and had to get a conditional use permit. Anyways, at that time when I was looking at putting this garage in, one thing that kept coming back and coming back because I wanted to put this large garage was no commercial business out of the garage, no large amounts of traffic. So what I look at here is, okay, we're in a residential area and less than a block away, they want to run a business. So what is really the difference here? I'm just hoping that you all look at that and let's keep it a residential area. I mean, we do have a cemetery going in there, and which we all welcome. And so, yeah, I guess my point is I'm going to stay away from the R word, and let's keep it residential. And the other thing is, if you look at the layout of the cemetery right in front of there on Slip Up Creek Road, the city still owns that piece of property there. And right there, yep. City still owns that piece of property, and is it their intentions of maybe putting residents in there to pay for that road, to pave that to the cemetery? Well, if you have residents in there, are you going to want a commercial business across your road from there? So I guess my point is, let's keep it residential for now and see what the future brings. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay. Mr. Chiltis, you just want to make some follow-up comments? Okay. You just keep it brief, please.
Yep, I will do. Yep, appreciate it. So yes, one thing that was mentioned about the traffic from Sioux Valley Cycle Club, 80% of traffic comes from the north as well as there. As far as bringing traffic, heavy equipment down, there are 2 bridges on that, so I'm not sure if the heavy equipment can come from the north, and there's 2 large bridges there that have failed in the past, so just be careful understanding that as well. We have already delayed this process. I had a December meeting that was delayed. We had a neighborhood meeting in January. We then had another meeting in February, so we already have been delayed. I urge you not to delay it anymore. Obviously, with new commercial business and also house, we would increase the taxes, which would then help Mapleton fund and pay for that road as well. And yeah, I guess the limit on speed limit there is 35 miles an hour. In the speed study, you'll see it's 35 to 37 is the average. There are people who go faster than that, but the average is 35 to 37 miles an hour. And yeah, as far as the sewage information, obviously we'd have a permit from Pier to understand that. Fire department, we would obviously have a water system and on-site well that would handle the water load. But yeah, I urge you to understand the entire project, how long it's taken, that we've worked very hard on this, and we urge your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, to open it up to the members, are there any questions or comments? Commissioner Heiberger.
I just have a comment maybe at this point, and that I understand there's a lot of concern about the paved road and the fast traffic on there. I don't know if it's possible, but have you ever approached the township about putting a couple speed bumps on that paved area? I don't know if you get to respond. You'll have to see if the chairman will. I'm just putting it out as an answer. Yeah, and I'm not sure whether we'll take any more from the audience, but I'm just telling you, and we can also talk about it later, but maybe that's a thought, and maybe it has been addressed. But a speed bump, if the township approved it, would maybe help with the fast traffic.
I'm going to give the members a chance to ask their questions and comments, and then perhaps I'll give you a chance to come up. Okay, we'll just see. Anybody else? Councilor Neitzert.
This is something I think Scott Anderson could help with. I just want to read one paragraph, and this is just me not being as familiar with county zoning, so if you could help me just to explain this. Minnehaha County has identified commercial and industrial growth areas which are called rural service areas. The subject property is not located within an identified rural service area. The concept behind the rural service area is to promote good planning ahead of commercial growth in the county. Then it talks about the nearest one is 2 miles away, but then it does go on to discuss that wedding barns are kind of a new and innovative thing. It's quasi-true commercial, and that there's, and that a planned development would be a good option. So, I mean, how do you look at just commercial in general in the county in an area like this, and what gets you to the comfort level that this is okay here, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Thank you. I think you have correctly identified the one of the issues is that I think wedding barns and these event facilities are sort of a new concept that has arisen over the last 3 to 5 years. Maybe it's been a little bit more than 5 years. So when you have a new use like a wedding barn, I think we try to, from a land use perspective, strive to figure out where is it going to be the best fit. And when you're talking about a use that is ideally, I look at it like similar to like a church, because you have people gathering there, and while this is primarily dealing with weddings, you know, I would say it's similar to a church use where you have people that are congregating at a certain time. Now, I don't want to get into all the details of, well, what happens in a church and what happens in a wedding barn. I'm just saying that it is a place where people are congregating for a specific event. And where would be the best use for that? Well, potentially, I suppose it could go in a commercial use. You know, you have churches that are on highways in commercial areas, but typically you would like something a little bit more peaceful and scenic. So that's where we sort of end up with how do we accommodate this new use, which seems to be very prevalent and in demand. The public wants to have these kind of facilities. So when I evaluate this, I look at it and I think, well, how can we accommodate this and keep control on it? Because I think that ultimately you as elected officials and myself as an administrator of the rules, we look at it as how can we make this blend the best way into an existing fabric of society? And that's where this plan development, I think, really fits in well, because when you have a plan development, it allows for some innovative, creative thinking, and that's where I think we can allow one specific use. I would never want to rezone this area to, let's say, commercial, because you don't know what will happen in 10 or 20 years. This wedding barn concept in 20 years may be passé. I mean, no one may be wanting a wedding barn anymore, and then if it goes out of business, The only use that's going to be allowed in this plan development is a wedding barn. If we rezone this to commercial, it could go out of business and you could have a hotel, you could have a truck stop, you could have a strip mall, which are all much more intensive uses than a wedding barn. So looking at it from a land use perspective, I think it provides some controls on behalf of the administrators and the county and the city. We can control it to that specific use, as opposed to rezoning it to light industrial or rezoning it to commercial, and then in 15 or 20 years, you could have some other uses which you never intended to ever occur there. So I hope that answers that. Maybe it's a little bit long-winded, but I apologize.
No, that's very good, and that is a point taken, that certain uses like a church you might prefer in a neighborhood or more of a quaint setting rather than in the middle of a humongous commercial development. I guess the other question I have, and this would be for Heath, who I see is in the audience, who is our traffic engineer. I'm going to put him on the hot seat because he's here. Have you looked at this at all? Has this been anything that's in your jurisdiction as far as traffic counts, patterns, standard of the street?
Hello, Heath Hofteser, Principal Traffic Engineer for the City of Sioux Falls. For the most part, we helped, we supplied HDR, a bunch of the count data that we had taken on the various roads outside of the city limits in this area in the past, so that they had data to look at when they were doing their study. And then we reviewed what HDR looked at too, and generally the numbers that they came up with, we agree based on kind of the floor space we're looking at, how the number of chairs that would potentially be in place, how many people would be there from that, and the amount of traffic it could generate. So, I mean, it's the traffic study, it makes sense. It's we agree with what they're saying. You know, it's right here, I'm trying to find, it's 500 to 600 trips total potentially added for maximum use event at the facility, which would be about 250 cars that would go to the event and then leave the event approximately. And based on the road itself, the amount of traffic on it, the amount of traffic it would generate, and the other events, other possible events from Saddleback and from the Veteran Cemetery, the road from a capacity standpoint could handle the traffic. It comes down to the issues, and I haven't really looked into the surfacing. We've left that with township, county, and whatnot. It's from a standpoint, the road can physically handle the traffic if the amount of traffic, if the road's able to hold up to the traffic. So.
Sure, and as I've learned about it in basic traffic engineering, actually a narrow road is actually preferable for speeds than widening the road because speeds are going to increase. But I guess I do, and I can wait on this. The question I guess I still would have is just a matter of even the traffic engineering report makes note that with an increase in cars would be more maintenance on the road, and that maybe it should be asphalted. And just somebody just answering that question, whether or not, because that's my only hang up, is just that we're okay with that the road's going to work in the interim until it might get paved. So just comment. Thanks.
Are there any other comments from the members? Councilor Staley.
Okay, I've got a question for Tyler. When you say water system, how are you having a big giant septic system there? How are you handling your wastewater?
This might be more a question for Kyle here too, but just maybe explain to me exactly, or you can come and talk to you. Yeah. He explained more of the construction side of things, that way it can be.
Yeah, okay, just because, I mean, that wasn't a concern, and I guess how do you handle that with a larger facility?
So any septic
Could you
system.
give your name and address, please? Thank you.
Kyle Kosand, 4412 North Hillcrest Avenue, Sioux Falls. Any septic system would have to be designed and approved by the state engineering office. So anything, we wouldn't get to that point to give you exact numbers until we were applying for a permit.
But your plan is you're going to have a septic system of some sort.
Correct, but they would be designed and approved by
And
the
all
state.
do you know if Andy's Acres, are they living on septic systems too?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So I've got a few more comments, but somebody else
I'll let Councilor Brecky go first.
Just a question for the traffic engineer. So I'm all the way back up again. Sorry about that. You know, there's been issues raised about the volume of expected traffic and the safety issues from the deep ditches, that it's a gravel road that maybe isn't ready yet for this increased volume. I'd like you to share your insights on that.
I guess it's it's hard for me to comment too much on the point of turning from gravel to paved and what it should be here, shouldn't be here, and it's for inside the city of Sioux Falls, for most roads, we don't have our gravel roads don't have this volume of traffic on them. We've got them paved way before that point. So it's the experience of working with our roads inside the city. I don't have a good reference to work with on what should be the surfacing for this particular location. That's why I really would pass that comment off to the township or county on what they feel the best surfacing is based on the volumes that we're looking at.
And the volumes that we're looking at, you know, I mean, a number, you know, 2,000 was, do you think that's high?
Well, what we're looking at is, you know, it's kind of subjective on when all the different events are. It's the current road, you know, you're looking at a couple hundred vehicles a day on the current road, possibly a major event at the location that we're considering could generate up to 600 trips, 300, or, you know, 250 to 300 vehicles going to the event and then leaving. An event at Saddleback Raceway could have, you know, couple hundred vehicles that go to that, if not more. The veterans, a cemetery could have a couple hundred vehicles too, but what we're looking at then is, you know, potential, if it's a day where absolutely everybody, all three of the major locations had an event, and you're looking at, you know, each generating traffic, I would say that probably about 1,800 would probably be about the peak that we would see. It's probably the biggest thing on an area like this is, you know, between the three entities not having a major event at the same exact starting time for all three of them. That would probably be the one time when things would be interesting on the roadway.
Is there anyone here that can answer a question? That's all I have for you. Is there anyone here that can answer a question about, you know, what is the timeline for development of the road to the Veterans Cemetery?
So my understanding is there is no plan today set in place. That's a 2020 to 2030 growth period for Sioux Falls Tier 2. So at some point, the city says, hey, you're in our joint jurisdiction, we're going to grow out there at some point. But today, there is no plan for that at all. Obviously, with increased traffic, again, 80% of traffic from Sioux Valley Cycle Club comes from the north. The cemetery, we don't know. Estimates are 250 funerals per year. Obviously, people will come and go from those events quick. But there is no direct answer, and the cemetery is going whether anything's changed or not changed, or paved or not paved. If it was a cornfield, the cemetery would still be going. It's in operation. It's starting construction this year. So the road has not been a thought process during that federal funding and that allocation of funds.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else besides Councilor Staley?
Yeah, let me jump in one if I can.
Okay, Councilor Stark.
I'm more still in the question stage, but Mr. Anderson, I guess my real question is, and I think you brought this up during your original presentation, what we're doing tonight is the zoning change to a planned development district. But you mentioned that the details that the residents or the neighborhood want come in the next step. Because right now they're asking, you know, whether it's a septic question, whether it's some of the design things that they'll do in this planned development, the answers they're looking for are really in that next step that have to follow current zoning in the county. So to give them, the developer, we'll use that term for what they're trying to do here, don't make the investment in those answers until they get this step of the approval process, because it doesn't make sense to spend the money that it takes to develop a septic system. Am I kind of heading down the right direction?
Generally, yes. Tonight, we're approving the use. And we're talking about specifically the use of this property and allowing that use to move forward. The next step will be at some point, the applicant will submit a final development plan, and that's reviewed by the Joint Planning Commissions, and that specifically will have the details of what they are proposing to build, how it's going to look, the landscaping, the parking, the signage. That's all going to be addressed. At that point, also the Planning Commission, the Joint Planning Commissions can put additional conditions on that final development plan that may not have been covered. Some of this has been covered, like the lighting, the magnesium chloride, the hours of operation. So those have already been addressed, and those are in the ordinance. So, but there is another step, and the planning commissions will review the final development plan, and there can be conditions that are added at that point.
Perfect, thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Staley?
Scott, another question for you. This facility, was there ever any discussion about how far south it was going to be placed? I see there's a creek down there. I mean, it has to be, well, no, it's like on that area, the building itself, is it as far south as it can go?
The red outline as shown on this property is the property boundaries that the applicant owns.
Right, but that blue area is where it's going to go.
Yes.
So what I'm wondering is the placement of that building itself. I mean, can you have it on the north end? Is there some way of pushing it farther away from these neighbors? I mean, who's going to determine where he puts it?
Well, that'll be discussed, I guess, when the final development plan occurs, when they submit that final development plan. But there has been some general discussion on where that building will be located, because they want to make sure that it's not in the flood. There is some floodplain, some designated floodplain that is associated with Slip Up Creek. So we will have to make sure that it's not in the floodplain, preferably. And just to give you an idea, if you want to back up one slide. So from the edge of the proposed plan development to the edge of the residential development is approximately 1,300 feet. So it is, I mean, it's not a block, it's quite a distance. It's almost a quarter mile, or so.
Well, and that was going to be another question, because someone mentioned it was a block away.
It's 1,300 feet.
So how many blocks is that?
4.5 approximately to 5. I think a city block is 300 feet approximately.
Okay. So the placement, although I didn't hear the neighbors talking as much about the placement of this as the concerns about the road. And I certainly empathize with that whole travel instance. I agree with Commissioner Heiberger that I was thinking that myself, is if you could have some kind of a speed bump put in there to help with that issue. But the road itself, I think, is going to be problematic. And I would say whether this would go through or not, the state may have to step in with some funds, because you're right, whoever was commenting that they're not going to want to have funeral processions driving on roads that are dilapidated and falling apart. This cannot happen. So with the volume of there's all sorts of activities happening out here, I get that. I think the state's going to have to help out. But the other thing that, and I don't know if you can, Scott, you can tell us this, but there is going to be, if this passes, there's going to be a financial boost from this facility, right? I mean,
certainly they'll be paying a higher property tax rate, and a portion of that will go to the county, a portion goes to the school district, a portion goes to the township.
And I don't, was there ever any talk about like a surcharge to help with the road? Or, I mean, that was negotiated with this magnesium chloride thing?
I think that's the intent of the magnesium chloride. Unfortunately, I think that you're suggesting something that is not legal for counties to do. We can't set up like an assessment district under state law. So there is no kind of impact fees. The county cannot charge impact fees or development impact fees. It's beyond what we are allowed to do. A city, city has that authority. We unfortunately don't.
Okay. And I will say that I'm getting the sense this isn't going, if it passes, the intent isn't to have a rebellious drinking Yahoo shout down kind of a thing. I've been to a wedding up near Canton at their wedding barn, and it was a lovely experience, and we all left by 6:30, and it wasn't anything too rowdy. I mean, I can understand I wouldn't want a big dance hall next to your residential either, so.
Are there any other comments? Yes, Councilor Selberg.
Thank you. Quick question. So if we approve the use tonight in this final development plan, can this road issue be further looked into in the time that we would move into that stage? Is that part of the next step?
I think it will be continued to be discussed.
Okay.
On several levels, we've already we've identified that the road is an issue, and the road will be an issue for the other uses that are already occurring. I think that's already been brought up, but the road is definitely an issue. It's on, I think, everyone's horizon to, radar to work on getting that fixed. It's just getting all the players together, the state, the federal, or whoever's all involved with the development of several properties out there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would think with everything that's coming along out that way, it's common sense it's already on the radar that it is coming. I was just wondering, obviously, for approving this part now, as they move to the next step, like you say, there's things that can be tied into that. There's more plans to be made, and that's moving along.
Yeah, there can be. It has to, if there are additional conditions that are attached, it certainly would be germane and relevant to that specific use. I mean, they are going to want to, tie some kind of road improvements to the use that's occurring, and it is a complicated issue because you have a proposed use that's going to be developed over the next several years that is going to be contributing significant traffic, and how to get everyone together to pay for that, or to all the players to improve that road is really, a struggle.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Neitzer.
Just in very quick summary, just my notes. It's a good use. The PD has conditions. These things are an asset to an area. It really just comes down, and as far as the capacity, that I think it could be handled. We always usually envision traffic being much worse than it's going to be. I think you're going to have some interplay between different times of events. It really comes down to the road maintenance issue, and Scott talked about it really well. It really comes down to a number of stakeholders are just going to have to work together and figure it out, and I think one way or another it's going to get handled. But the PD itself, I think, is well designed.
Any other comments or questions? If not, I would look for a motion on the county side.
Motion to approve.
So motion, is there a second?
Second.
So motion and a second. A roll call vote, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes on the county side.
All right, is there a motion on the city side on this item?
Move to approve Erickson.
Second, Selberg.
All right, motion approved by Erickson, seconded by Selberg. A vote from the city, please.
Council members Neitzer,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale,
Yes.
Starr,
Yes.
Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
All right, that item passes 7-0 on the city side.
Okay, so the The item passes. The next item is for public input. Is there anyone here who would like to speak about something that's not on the agenda tonight? All right, seeing none, I would look for a motion to adjourn on the county side.
So moved.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes on the county side.
All right, motion from the city to adjourn?
Move to approve, Star.
Adjourn?
Or adjourn. I'll get the right A word.
We'll
Adjourn.
we'll approve the adjournment.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Erickson. All those in favor? Opposed? All right.
All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.